A cracker of a day of America's Cup racing. Just a short video to focus on some of the key points. I'm going to cover off the rules and the complete cluster that went on at the start with the rules, and just a little bit of how I think the penalties in this America's Cup are frankly stupid and they really need to sort that out. But before I moan about stuff, I'm just gonna run through Jimmy Spittle's amazing start in the first race. This is top class match racing. So yeah, first of all, let's talk about something positive, and that's gonna be Jimmy Spittle starting.
There's Rolly burning away, boys. There.
So props to Jimmy, but it's actually Bruni sets us up. He chooses when to bear away, and he counts into the jibe, which sets up the perfect time on distance for Jimmy.
3, 2, 1, more down.
Yeah, go for the jibe on Bruni's call. Perfect positioning. They float it down in the jibe, then head up, and listen to what Bruni says.
2 lengths above for the delay.
So I really like this. Bruni is giving kind of like the situational course awareness to Jimmy, so Jimmy can focus on choosing the correct mode.
Spill here.
Yeah, easing out all. Trim, ragazzi.
We're off now.
Yeah. Fresh.
My mode here.
Yeah, trim.
So all the chat is between Pietro and Jimmy about the mode selection. They get it spot on perfect. It's beautiful to watch. Cracking start. Pin INEOS out. They're both over the line, but it's INEOS penalty for windward leeward. So comprehensively winning the start. Really good execution from the Luna Rossa guys there. Freeze frame there, so just after the start, both boats were OCS, so both boats have a 50-metre penalty to get behind the other one, or they have to go round and restart. And then INEOS have an additional penalty from the windward leeward, so INEOS should have to get behind Luna Rossa like basically twice.
Penalty GBR, both boats OCS, which is neutralised, penalty GBR.
So this is where the confusion starts. Slater says penalty GBR, both boats were OCS, neutralised, penalty GBR. So the penalty GBR is for the windward leeward, that's fine, but he says both boats are neutralised from the OCS. That's not true, that's not in the rules, so they have to actually either restart or get 50 metres behind the other boat. I think Italy do get 50 metres behind, so maybe that is kind of, they've paid their penalty. UK never get 50 metres behind, so they've definitely not paid their OCS penalty, which is weird. But now you have the situation where INEOS know they've got a penalty outstanding, and they're just waiting for Richard Slater to clear that penalty.
Whatever you might call it, there were probably any number of different fouls right there.
So you hear Giles say, penalty gone. Rich Slater has turned the penalty button off on the UK boat, so as far as they're aware, the penalty's gone. Now this is the big problem with the penalty rules. In normal sailing, your rule, the penalty is a 360 or a 720, and that penalty is completely within yourself to carry out. You just do those turns, and you know when you've done a 360, you know when you've done a 370, you can then carry on the race. But because the America's Cup penalties are relative to the other boats, you have to either get 50 metres behind or give up 50 metres relative to them, then the only person who can tell you when you've completed your penalty is the umpire. And now the umpire has told UK that they've completed their penalty. He's turned the light off. That's it, penalty clear.
Umpire, just the umpire. GBR gained an advantage. GBR has to get 50 metres behind Italy.
So there's a bit of coaching of the umpires in there by Jimmy Spittle. He's saying INEOS gained an advantage, there should be another penalty, and there is a rule for that. So if a boat gains a penalty, gains an advantage despite taking a penalty, then they should have another penalty. However, it's kind of a weird situation because the umpire is in control of seeing when INEOS have paid their penalty and turning that light off, and the umpire did turn the light off. And then obviously another minute goes by and they kind of change their mind about the situation and decide INEOS hasn't taken enough penalty despite flagging it okay, and then apply another penalty. And you can see why INEOS are annoyed about this. You know, when a penalty happens, you just want to do it, complete it, get out your head and start racing. But instead, now a third way up the beat, the situation has suddenly changed for them again and they got an additional penalty to clear. Look, it's probably fair, but you can see why INEOS and Ben would be aggrieved. We then have Luna Rossa frustrating INEOS UK. Every time INEOS try and tack to take this penalty, Luna tack as well, and they just can't clear it. It's the most of the way up the beat before INEOS can actually get rid of this penalty. Now, there is a rule where if a boat is trying to lose the VMG but can't because of some of action of the other boat, then the umpire could have flagged that okay. It goes back to this weird situation where all the penalties are relative. You know, how are you supposed to clear a penalty? How are you supposed to give up 50 metres when the other yacht keeps on losing 50 metres as well? So another kind of part of the rule that kind of went against INEOS. I thought it was a bit of a shame, really. Luna Rossa won that start hands down, and it just kind of was a bit of a detraction from that excellent sailing that the umpires kind of got so involved at that first beat. You can see why Ben is annoyed. The outcome in the end is probably fair though. Okay, so let's have a look at the second race really quickly, and this is basically what I see in the difference. Obviously, INEOS sail a better pre-start. For once, they're not too bothered about being the left-hand boat here, because the left-hand side of the line is favoured. So you see them go over the start, and instantly as they cross the line, INEOS has got kind of like a 7-8 metre like advantage just because of being at the favoured end of the line. They're able to squeeze up on Luna Rossa. Now, Luna Rossa normally have a really good high mode, but when the boat ahead of you is punched out bow forward, it's really easy to put that squeeze on. And as soon as INEOS get ahead, you'll see the different style of tactics. When Luna Rossa get ahead, they want to instigate a tacking duel, get INEOS and themselves to be tacking as much as possible, gain the meters in those tacks. But that's different from INEOS. When they get ahead, they're just trying to minimise the tacks. They bounce one on Luna Rossa there, but you see every time INEOS are doing their tack, they're not actually trying to tack on Luna Rossa. They're just trying to bounce Luna Rossa back the other way to make them do more tacks. And Luna Rossa go off screen there. That's a bit of a shame, but basically getting towards the top. There's only 60 metres in it, and Luna Rossa are actually a bit quicker upwind. The difference is Luna Rossa do 5 tacks to only 3 tacks for INEOS UK. So that's basically the INEOS tactic when they get ahead, is just to bounce Luna Rossa into a few extra tacks. So and obviously Luna Rossa's tacking is good, but you know, they do still lose distance in the tack. INEOS, I think, were a little bit quicker downwind, and I think a lot of the difference was the bigger jib on INEOS gave them a little bit more horsepower. Obviously that's unwanted upwind, so they were losing out upwind but gaining a little bit downwind. Overall, I thought the boat speed advantage around the course was to Luna Rossa, but again, second beat, and you can just see Luna Rossa do 2 more tacks than INEOS again, and INEOS are able to stay ahead despite their boat speed handicap. Now, final beat, the problem with INEOS's tactic is that if you're always doing 1 less tack or 2 less tacks than your opponent, eventually they will get splits, and they got a split at the bottom. You can't really see it, it's just off screen. And again, they bounce them into a couple more tacks, but they split at the top. And again, Luna Rossa do well out the splits. So if INEOS can get ahead, yes, they can win races, but they've got to make sure when they force these extra tacks of Luna Rossa, that Luna Rossa aren't gaining out of the extra tacks and the splits. So that's why Luna Rossa, when they're ahead, their ability to out-tack their opponent is basically a slam dunk. There's no way past. They can just force you into a tacking duel and it's horrible. INEOS, on the other hand, when they get ahead, they're not better in tacks, so they have to force Luna Rossa to do extra tacks, and it's not quite so strong a tactic. They can just about hold on for a race, but only if they get all these splits right, and it ended up being a really tense race. So my prediction for the rest of the racing is if Luna Rossa get ahead, then that's it, pretty much game over. But if INEOS can get ahead, we're going to see some really tense races as Luna Rossa hunt them down.